Hey everyone, it's Tali from AstroStyle, and I am here with one of my dear friends, astrologer, wellness consultant, and dream worker, Stephanie Gailing. You can find her at stephaniegailing.com. And we are going to talk about 2020 and how to work with your dreams in this very luminous year. So, Stephanie, what do you see as what are the big deal things that you're focusing on as we enter this new decade astrologically?
So one of the big things is, right, and as we enter into 2020, we have this transformative alignment of Saturn coming together with Pluto. And then the whole year sort of picks up on that after Pluto, after just meeting Saturn, comes in with Jupiter. Right, so this really strong theme from a Plutonian perspective of owning our shit, right? The whole Pluto, really uncovering, digging down into what is real, what is true, right? What has veracity, and I think that it, for all of us, both individually and collectively, right, to really start to see like what has been just a facade, right, or our own facades, and how they've been tested, and how we are actually seeing what is real, what is just a pose, right? And to see from that place too about like how do we get down to what's essential, what's integral. So a lot more about that, but that's
big
sort of
questions. And then that is really, Jupiter is that great truth bearer, and Pluto guards all the secrets. And they're meeting on April 4th, June 30th, and November 12th, 3 times. And then we have Saturn and, Pluto meeting January 12th. So how are you going to be, advising clients to kind of work with this? I know I really love that whenever I get readings from you, I walk away with this transformational insight about, not just what's happening on the material plane, but how to shift my mindset, how to really, think beyond just even the physical and bring it, and that's very, Plutonian, I think, too. So how are you going to be advising people to move through and navigate these energies in 2020?
Yeah, so I think some of it is also really looking to this past year, to 2019, right? Because although the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is not exact until January 12th, it was all in play in 2019.
Feeling it already. I felt it already. Totally. I am feeling it. Yeah.
I mean, we've been really pushed to see the limits of our facades, of our bullshit. What is the integrity of the foundations upon which we are building our lives individually and the structures collectively? So I would first say, look back on 2019. What were some of the strong themes for you where you saw that you had to pay attention to things that you might have been turning a blind eye to before, right? Where you couldn't make excuses.
So many people dealing with that, right?
We
can't not look.
You can't.
Even if you want to look away, right?
Everything that, whether we want to say we've swept under the rug, we've put in the closet, we've turned a blind eye, all of those different perspectives. And I think that everybody knows, because they were recurring themes, where we said, okay, there's too much suffering that we feel inside, too much stress, too much tension by continuing to not look.
Right.
Now, looking itself might have been stressful or painful or oh no, now I have to take responsibility, very Saturn, for that.
Right.
But this is where the clearing comes. This is where the healing comes, right? So really to take a look, to do a Saturn inventory of where you've dug,
right,
of what secrets Pluto emerged, of your own shit that you had to own. Also, right, with Saturn in terms of making limits, and not accepting other people's shit.
Right.
And
a lot of boundary work.
And so all of this, I feel like this is a lot of that treasure that now we come forward into 2020. Because all of that, we have Jupiter coming to that connection. Jupiter that expands. Jupiter that makes things grow, and Jupiter that yields the wisdom. So it also feels really important because, like, it's not like, okay, if you haven't done the work in 2019, you're out of luck. No, it's not that. You continue to do the work. You continue to take stock. You continue to dig down into what is really foundational for you. Because I also feel like, too, right, Jupiter expands. So if you're on an upward climb, you will go faster.
Right.
But if you're like going down, if you've got a lot of like shit built up in the pipes, like it's gonna go faster and it's gonna
Call
explode.
the planetary plumber, everyone.
The planetary plumber.
He is here to drill down, yeah.
So, and it also feels too, looking at it from another perspective, right? Wisdom can be found, Jupiter, in buried treasure.
I love that.
So it feels like it's all upon us to go to those places within ourselves, to excavate, right? I've been thinking about this from the perspective of like, it's not just a reconstruction, it's not just change, it's deconstruction for reconstruction.
Yes.
Right? We've got to tear down that which, again, was our own stories, like those things even that like we just believed in and about ourselves that even limited ourselves.
Yeah.
You tear them down.
Our own mythology, our own, even the ways we lie. Like, no one can lie to themselves in 2020, can they? Well, not, I mean, it's not advisable, let's just say.
It's not about, and I think too, I mean, it's interesting you bring that up, right? Because I think we've seen, not to get political here, but we've also seen like, 2019 was just, and before that, like full of lies. And I think that that's what's, some people are getting so sort of bent out, upset about, because it's like, wait a minute, like, I can't, those lies, that is not truth. But what's it mirroring for us, right? Thinking about Pluto for shadow, right? Like that we're actually also seeing like, wait, I've got to take stock of what's true to me. I can't, continue on this bullshit or these lies about myself, to myself.
And that is the hardest thing. This is the hardest work, right?
It's the hardest work.
So you think, I mean, I agree. I think we're being challenged to do some of the most difficult personal inventory of all times, maybe in 2020, because of this trio that hasn't met up since 1285 AD of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, and Capricorn. Yeah, just a few, not too long ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, it feels really intense, right? I mean, even saying like, okay, we actually have, we are encouraged, we are pulled, I don't want to use forced, so we'll say encouraged, just like Jupiter rising.
Right.
We're being encouraged to take a look. But I think also too, because through that door, right? If you don't look, there's suffering. Right?
Yes.
You go through that place, right? And it may feel a bit tenuous at times, but then you're on the other side. So I think that it behooves all of us. Now, there's a reason that we didn't want to like deal with our grief or deal with our shadow or deal with our sorrow, right? So what can you do to support yourself? To say, okay, I am going to go through this. I am going to look. Who's there to help me?
Oh, that's great.
Right?
You don't have to do it alone.
Don't have to do it alone. And also thinking about it from a Capricorn perspective, like it's also Saturn perspective, like what structures might be there to help you, right? Family, friends, community, healthcare practitioners, healers. That, and I think this becomes
coaches even, and that Saturnian, like give me a structure, format, map.
Yeah, having that map, that's a great point, right, too, in terms of like, let's have a plan. It's not just like, okay, we're diving in. It's like, let's actually
going into the shit now.
A plan.
Yeah.
In terms of how we can embrace, to see, embrace, and own the shadow.
Right.
Our shadow. To become more whole, to have this great level of healing. Now, that's not to say, again, that it's easy. And I think that also, like, we're feeling this collectively. Like,
I was going to say, with the environment, we're being forced to look at even the way we're handling, our natural resources and factories and whatnot, and climate crisis. Yeah.
It's so, I mean, and not to say that nobody was paying attention, but like come to 2019, it felt like there was this surge, right? Whether with Greta, with what have you, the school strikes, Jane Fonda every Friday, like out there, striking as well, protesting. And I thought what was interesting from a real Plutonian perspective is we used to all call it climate change. Change. Change could be hard, change could be easy, change sort of feels neutral. Now the words, like you even say, climate crisis, climate breakdown, climate emergency.
We can't paint that like rosy, hue on this anymore now.
Exactly, right? And so even that shift in languaging and that perspective feels very much, again, what we need to see, to own, to name, to call out, even through our voices, to take that out of the shadow. And it's hard. I mean, it's
so hard.
Thinking about like, oh my God, there's like, how many of our species are dying every day? Oh my God, right now, like Australia is burning.
Yeah.
Like we were having these crazy like rain nonstop here, right?
Yeah.
In Seattle. And to think about the possibility of destruction, on such a large level, and the emotions that brings up, grief or sadness or fear or maybe, guilt from, well, what part of it was, those are things that we're like, don't want to look at, don't want to look at.
But it almost feels like, it's like, I don't know if people can even conscientiously not look anymore.
Exactly.
It's almost like we're starting, I think, and I've been feeling it, I don't know about you, but since the middle of last year, as Saturn and Pluto are getting really closer and closer, it's like it's almost irresponsible to, you can no longer be an ostrich. And nobody wants to. It feels more out of control to bury your head in the sand than it does to actually take a look and say, solution time,
Yeah. And that faith, and maybe Jupiter will give us that faith that like we can find solutions to these very big, monumental Pluto things that we are moving through.
And being in Capricorn, governments, the economy, corporations, like I know talk is shifting more and more to like, okay, it's great to bring a metal straw, that's important, mindset, but the real shift is going to come from the systematic level, and we're moving into so much Capricorn and Aquarius. What do you think about the Aquarian energy that's coming in through, Saturn moving into Aquarius March 21st, July 1st, and then again meeting up at the end of the year, we'll have Jupiter and Saturn together in Aquarius December 17th and 19th, and then the great conjunction of them together in Aquarius, 0 degrees on December 21st. So what do you think about that Aquarian energy? How will that that will add to the chorus of dealing with our shit?
Well, I think it's so interesting because it feels like this year with Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, like you were saying, right? It's also about the structural approach, right? And it's about being diligent and doing the work.
Yes.
But slowly doing the work. It's not like when, with Neptune and Pisces, and then there's Jupiter and Sagittarius and all this sort of magical thinking, and I'll just like wish it away. Like we actually have to come to the mat. We actually have to do the work slowly during the year. And then I feel like with Aquarius, we have this possibility to come into it together. Right? And realizing too, and I was thinking when you said about the metal straws too, like we've, I think, also all come to the realization that, yes, it's important for me to compost and recycle and use energy efficient bulbs and all that. But really, in terms of the climate, like what's going to happen has to come from an institutional level. Right? And so then come the Aquarius, like will we band together in a new way?
Right. Societal shift altogether.
Yeah, because really that's the way that we're going to make it through. And not just on a sort of a climate perspective, I think, but like to recreate our world so that it does have more of those, what some say are those Aquarian values.
Those
like
utopian ideals, yeah.
To be like, altruistic, to care about, to come from a humanitarian perspective.
As a Sagittarius, and I know you're a Pisces sun, and so we are kind of those optimistic, visionary dreamers, and we had our ruling planets squaring each other in 2019. Do you think that kind of took us to the limits of it? Was like, okay, dream time cannot, it's not like we can't have these dreams, but how do we connect them to reality? And that's the next, actually, well, I want to ask you about Dreamwork in 2020, but how do you think the Jupiter and Neptune squares that happened in January, June, and September of 2019 kind of affected this new dialogue?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, and reflecting what you said, I think too, almost on a homeopathic level, right? We saw so much of the illusion, right? We saw so much of the cloud, and then we saw so much of the I'm just gonna take off, Jupiter making Neptune bigger. And then we realized no, maybe it burst a bubble on some level of that. That we actually need to come back down. And I actually liked when I thought about it last year how it'd be Jupiter with Neptune, and then also there was the Neptune with Saturn, and Saturn was the last one. So it's sort of this whole notion of also, I think expansion of possibility of faith and people getting more into the study of the numinous and what have you. But I think it definitely burst some of our bubble of we just can't sit and meditate it all away. We've got to come to the mat. Here comes Capricorn and all these planets lining up in Capricorn.
Yeah, and it is gonna, in some ways, I wonder if that will push us a little more to that dream realm. And so how can, it's I always think of everything having a polarity, it's too much of that hard scrabble realism energy is gonna could be a downer. How can we work with that? Not that we have to be all, sparkle ponied out with our dreams, because sometimes the messages of our dreams are not going to be that.
Definitely not.
Yeah, how will dream work play into this? How can it be a tool for navigating this too? Because I know it's not Dreamwork this is your dream. It's a tool that you have.
Exactly. So, one of the things that's so interesting for me about working with dreams and working with astrology, right, is that through astrology, whether it's our own astrology or seeing the collective kairos, what's up in the zeitgeist at the moment, and looking at that through astrology, we have that understanding of either the individual or the collective psyche. And our dreams tap into that as well. Right, so the ability to see how they weave together and use them together, there's so much synergy, And yet here we talk about too, Jupiter and Pluto. Pluto is also about the subconscious, what's going on in the dark,
right.
when the lights are out and I'm sleeping, what is my subconscious revealing?
Right.
And not to say Dreamwork is only great during the year of Jupiter Pluto. Of course not. But it feels extra powerful, right? What can I learn when the depths of my psyche that I can access through many different ways, including in my dreams, and what can they bring forth in terms of insight, in terms of healing, what have you? So, do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I always have so many questions, the Sag in me. Well, I would love, I know you have a tool to share for dream work too, so I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for no, I know. I am, but you know that about me already. Yeah, what have you talked to us about, working with our dreams as individuals?
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways you can work with your dreams from an individual perspective, but one thing to talk about for this year, right, is how can you turn to your dreams for insight, for healing, for solace, for wayfinding through this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, right? So again, if this year brings all of us some really deep connections to profound feelings, okay, how can we use our dreams to go into that?
So tell us what we can do, to actually tap into this. Tap into our dreams, yeah. How?
So, again, the fact that we will be closer to these deep feelings, right? And those feelings that, again, we may not have wanted to open to in our waking consciousness. And they will come through our dreams. So one of the things that you can do, knowing that your dreams will be really revealing from this perspective, from these Jupiter, Pluto, and Capricorn themes of, radical transformation, of structures that are not even dissolving, being ripped apart for regrowth. Right? For the facing of emotions or truths or thoughts that we have kept at bay, right? Is through turning to your dreams. So there's this really wonderful exercise called dream incubation. Mm-hmm. And it's basically, have we talked about this before?
I don't think we have, no.
So in dream incubation, in this part of dream incubation, what you're doing is you're asking your dreams. In your conscious mind, you're communicating with the part of your mind that dreams and asking it for insight. So you're seeding your dreams intentionally. So what you would do is say, and I'm going to give examples of how to work with this in Jupiter and Pluto, but just in terms of how the technique works, is you think about what it is that you want your dreams to reveal. It could be something like, show me an archetype of Jupiter Pluto, or it can be, I'm working through this instances of jealousy or unempowerment, or, finding the faith to surrender, whatever it may be, right? You think about what's really coming up for you in your life. Okay. You focus on that theme. And then as you're going to bed, what you're doing is you want to frame a very simple question to your psyche. Now, you don't want this question to say, dream, tell me about X and Y and Z, and because then when you get your dream in the morning, you will be like, which part did that answer, right? We want it very Capricorn, very on point and very simple.
Specific and
very
simple,
specific.
okay.
So you may ask your dream something about, give me an example of something that somebody could be moving through.
What do I need to know for my love life?
Great.
What do I need to shift within myself to find love?
Perfect. So you ask, and you really, in a very thoughtful way, you ask that to yourself, right? You could say it to yourself, you could say, dream, please show me. Dream, please reveal. And then again, very simply. Now, to really focus this and emphasize this, what you can do is you can write the question in your dream journal. Right? Because oftentimes too, when I've done this before too, I do dream incubation, I don't write it down, I wake up in the morning, I have this dream, and I'm like, wait, what was it that I wanted to know? Right? So you write it down. It could also, if you really want to focus on even more emphasizing sort of the connection, you might have something either in your dream altar or your nightstand that reminds you of it. Let's just say that it's about a creative project that you're working on, or a relationship with somebody,
You
right?
can bring a picture or a supply or something.
Exactly. And you look at that before you go to sleep, right? So you're setting, it's all about intention.
Triggering your unconscious and subconscious. It's almost like you're doing a tarot read. Your subconscious is giving you a tarot card pull.
Exactly. So because you're honing that intention, and you are honoring the weaving together relationship between all of the parts of your mind. Now, the thing too is that where this is also has another benefit is that the research has shown that people who have confidence that they remember, that they dream, and that they remember their dream and revere the value of their dream, actually remember their dreams more.
Really? Okay, because I was going to ask, there's people out there, I myself don't always remember my dreams, but I also have this story that I've said, I don't remember my dreams, so I'm going to stop saying that as of today.
Right. And maybe what you could do is you could also frame that, not like, I don't remember my dreams, but you can also say, I didn't remember my dreams last night.
Okay.
And I always instruct people also when they keep their dream journals, if you wake up and you don't remember your dream, instead of not writing in your dream journal, you still want consistency, very Capricorn. And you can say, I didn't yet remember my dreams from last night.
Just write it in there, just to make sure you're cataloging and getting your own neural pathways in the practice of that.
Exactly. And it's still, because what that sets up is not a message that I didn't have a dream.
Right.
It's just, on this evening, I honor that I had a dream. I just didn't remember the dream.
I love that because I know that I have dreams because when I wait, I'm like, where am I? I'm not, out on the timeline somewhere else. But to consciously practice recording daily, nightly. So before bed, you have a dream journal by your bed and you write a question to yourself. Close it. Go to sleep. What if you wake up in the middle of the night sometimes to record dreams?
Yep. If you wake up in the middle of the night, you can, record your dreams, write them down. If you either have a partner who sleeps very soundly or you sleep alone, you can use a recorder, which is what I really like to do, on your iPhone or you can record your dreams. And also what I think is interesting is that it feels like this year in terms of really looking to our dreams for wisdom and insight again, because we are looking for wisdom, Jupiter, into that which is buried. for our dreams.
Right.
But also to really then tapping into that energy. How might you actually see the archetypes of Jupiter and Pluto showing up in your dreams?
Say a little more about that. That's fascinating.
So thinking about too, like what are those archetypes, especially when you talk about Pluto, like it's a lot about the shadow, right? And it's about the darkness. It's about the shit, right? It's about underground treasures, the volcanic activity, what's being hidden, what is underneath. Who knows too, like some people when they're focusing on Capricorn themes or they're moving through these times in their life, the mountain goat, the mountain,
right.
things like that.
True.
And so it's always really interesting when you can see
Crystal
those archetypes.
caves, maybe,
Exactly.
That's what I want in my Capricorn dreams.
Dream incubation.
Okay. Take me to the crystal cave tonight, dream journal, yes.
And to see especially and it's not just that you would do dream incubation like around those dates of the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, although if you want to try it out, it could be really interesting to do it around those times because the archetype, or like right around those times when the moon is tying in, in a cardinal sign, because it's going to carry it, it's going to transmit it, is to do that, right? Because then you almost like you have a hotline, if you will, to that collective unconscious and to see what of those archetypes that come through.
So April 5th, June 30th, November 12th, or the 13th, depending on your time zone. So those are going to be the hot button days. But you never know. I mean, this is this is for the whole year. I mean, because it's kind of the way Jupiter-Neptune squares kind of blanketed all of 2019 and forced us to look at the illusions. Now we're ready to, the illusions are shattered. We're ready to look at our shit. Pluto being the planetary plumber, getting down there in the pipes, but also what we project and say, I think in our waking life too, what are our waking dreams, what's the delusion, or we're saying that person over there is doing this to me and then turning it into like, and how am I playing a role in this? How am I a mirror for that? Maybe I'm not exactly like them. Part of me may be, magnetizing that reaction. And this is not to blame the victim or anything like that, but a powerful place to stand, to say, what if I had considered a situation this way, right?
I mean, it behooves all of us to do the shadow work, right? Individually. I also do wonder too in 2020, like, will that collective shadow get even more? I mean, already it's gotten so large in the last couple of years, right? But maybe it's this year too where we own that, where we take that back, where we're not again like turning that blind eye, and where we have to really like embrace and do that work.
With the elections, for sure, I think that's going to bring out, a lot of Jupiter, Pluto. I mean, I'm thinking like the whole, election cycle, the Democratic primaries in the U.S. and, the actual presidential election are all under this Jupiter, like it's looking at who we are when we go to the mat in terms, and it's already become, clearly it's going to be a fight, and so, but who are we when are we more focused on the fight or our ideals? And the Aquarian, that's where I think the Aquarian energy may come in too, right?
Well, and it's interesting thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking like, if everybody sort of did that, like going to the polls during like doing a Jupiter-Pluto exercise, but you could kind of go both ways, right? Like Jupiter-Pluto for some people, it's like, I want control. I'm scared of losing power. Like, it's okay that there's sort of that dark, or, so I'm going to sort of vote that way, right? But it's like, okay, let me really dig down into what is essential and what is true, and and then I go to the polls that way. It's almost like how it's like this voting, like in Jupiter-Pluto. There was something that I wanted to also say. Let's see if it just sort of Neptune evaporated.
Bring it back. Back.
Oh, but I think too, like this year, and I feel like we will see more of this. In 2020 is, we can talk about like, do our shadow work, or dig
crystals.
Let's find the crystal cabinet. We can talk about all of that, but it's ugly. I mean, it's also been really, really hard to see that. And so I think too, it's like, how do you continue to find a level of courage, right? I think some of it might also be like doing the Capricorn, like finding the pace at which a steady pace, so that you can maintain a sense of resilience as you make these shifts.
Yes.
And yet it does also feel like there's also this pressure, Pluto, which is also about survival, like
Right.
don't go too slow because survival. I mean, there's a lot bubbling up for all of us, and I think that it will do so more next in 2020. But how do you have outlets for that? You know, yeah, your dreams can guide you and they can be a wayfinding. But I also feel too that we need to find outlets to take what's Pluto deep down within us and find ways to get it out.
Right.
You know,
Jupiter sort of seems like that. I gotta just call it like it is, too.
Like, you know, I'm thinking too, like artwork, you know, creative expression, you know, connecting with people, coming together, you know, sort of that pre-Aquarian sort of what's going to happen, banding together with people who have shared value and shared vision, you know, to do what you find is essential and important.
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking about, you know, maybe in 2019 it was like you, and then it's like Jupiter, Pluto, me too, like calling ourselves out as we discover that we all are part of the same system. We've all been, you know, part of this world of consumerism and white supremacy and, you know, homophobia, and, you know, how do we also own that and say, I have participated in that in a way, you know, like we have to, you know, maybe this may force that kind of reckoning that can be very hard for people to do because no one wants to connect to that shadow, that you know, I didn't invent this, I was just born this way, but how are, you know, that I think that's going to be a tough, intense moment, but really necessary in order to move society, in order to advance society to the next level. We have to also take responsibility.
Completely.
Very Saturn-y type.
No,
you know?
I think you're right on. Like, because if we say, well, I don't want to admit that about myself, or I was part of the problem, right? So then we can go into like the ostrich mode, right? But then there's no healing, right? And then there's continued suffering. But to have that courage to say, you know what? I'm going to take stock of the fact that like I did have this bias, or I did, you know, do this thing, or I didn't care when in species were being, whatever it may be.
Right.
But just to say, okay, I did this. I will take stock of this. I will own that. Yeah. And now let's come together and move forward.
That can be very empowering in a way that it never has before. And it's going to be really interesting to see how we are able to, as a species, hopefully turn, you know, trash into treasure, you know, if we can, or just our own shadow coming into light. And this is, so there, I know
trash into treasure.
Oh, yes. I love a good alliteration. I love a good writer moment, yeah. So I know you've talked to me about retrograde spells, having a particular bent in the way you do dream work, and we have Venus going retrograde from May 13th to June 25th, and then Mars going retrograde from September 9th to November 13th, right over the election as well, in Aries, and Venus retrograde in Gemini. How would you work with dreams during those spells? Is there a specific exercise or a way to just think?
Yeah, for sure. So again, thinking from an as above, so below perspective as we do, and thinking about retrograde, right? A going back, a retraversing of territory, right? So we see it in our waking lives that things from the past or people from the past, resources from the past, do show back up, whether they literally do or in our mind's eye, right? So in dreams, right, we can look at this a couple of ways, especially around the beginning of the retrograde and the end of the retrograde, right, when that energy is really strong. Look to see in your dreams whether literally there are retrograde themes. You know, I've worked with so many people who their themes are like, they actually are like, they go and walk back the steps that they walk through. They're walking backwards. You know, they're turning back around. Things from the past are coming through their dreams, and pay special attention to that. Like, what's coming from the past for you? Or what are you finding yourself focusing your attention on in your dreams that may have come before?
Yes.
Because to me, that, whether it be in waking life, in dreaming life, in all parts of our life, that is such a big part of the value and the virtue of those retrogrades is that we get to see our skip steps, right? And
right.
what treasures that we missed the first time around for whatever reason, you know, that they come back to access. Right? And you can, of course, do then dream incubation during those times, right? Venus retrograde may very well be about, like, you know, how can I reclaim a greater level of understanding related to what I value, my own sense of self-worth, relationships.
Finances even. And I'm even thinking maybe since Venus is retrograde in Gemini in 2020 to, like, whatever happened to that person? Or, you know, I'm not like your dream is going to be like a detective, but like, should I reconnect to this person? Or could you possibly even have that reconnection in the dream that satisfies? Or what do I need to say to this ex in order to be complete? Or this old friend, you know, since Gemini kind of rules platonic relationships. Is there a frenemy, you know, that you know you should never write again, but you want to know what to say? Could you kind of heal that or resolve it within your dreams?
I mean, I would say too, right, like when people would talk about, like, you know, do the write a letter that you're never going to send, right? Like
a dream that you're never going to report on.
You could do that, right? Like, and maybe that's what you do your incubation around, right? Is about having that experience.
Closure through your dreams, which can happen.
Because I'm sure you've had dreams where you wake up and you're like, was that a dream? Was that real? Like, I actually feel really different. Something has been transformed in me.
I've had dreams where I've literally like screamed at somebody who hurt me and then I felt like I'm done. This is good.
Yeah, like you work out some of that, you know, on an emotional level through your dreams.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, that's great. Like, what conversations may I have?
And Mars retrograde with the warring Aries energy might be really good for conflict resolution through dreams, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So that you're not going to have those possible conflicts like out in the waking world. But
bar brawls and whatnot.
What's that?
Bar brawls and whatnot.
And so it's interesting to look too, like then in that Mars retrograde, like what is coming up in terms of themes in your dreams related to how you fight for things, what you want to champion, how you deal with your anger, how you deal with frustrated anger.
Oh, that's so true.
What do I really desire that I'm not allowing myself to give voice to?
Oh, that's going to be powerful.
And how can I get a different perspective on that?
So this is a year, if you could sum it all up, for us to really get real about, you know, the things that have been buried underground. What do you think? You know, of course, there's more than one thing. Just a couple of takeaways for people to like really bring this into their lives. What would you leave people with?
So I would say own your shit, right? And I think that it's not just owning your shit. I also think that it's this notion of like re-embracing that which you may have buried and cast away. Like, where are the hidden treasures that reside within you that you have not valued, that you have not honored, right? That maybe you have cast away through societal conditioning, what have you. Oh, which reminds me, something I wanted to weave in that just made me remember is also through this Jupiter and Pluto, when it occurs, it squares Eris in Aries. And so I think that further asks us to say, what are those disinvited parts of myself? And how can I bring them back, right, to who I am, right, and that sense of ownership.
Yeah, can you say a little bit about what Eris represents in astrology?
Yeah, so Eris represents many things, including Eris was the goddess of discord. And without going into the whole myth, right, she threw the apple, there was lots of upset, there was this, there was that, and the consequences led to supposedly the Trojan War, or what have you. She, I believe, is the sister of Mars, so she is also a warrior, and she inspires for us to fight for that which is not just unfair, but in terms of discrimination, of feeling like an outsider. Right? So where, thinking about it collectively, those people or those groups who are left out, who are uninvited, and thinking for ourselves, what are those parts of ourselves that we, do not, bring to the main party? Because we say, oh, no, not me. Oh, no, I can't admit this. Oh, no, that got me in trouble. What have you? right? So it's an interesting mix with Uranus and Pluto because it's really this sense of like, let me go down into possibly even my sorrows or my hurts in terms of that had me do this separation. Had me even discriminate within myself, let alone with other people, right? That projection, and reclaim that.
And I think about, the Aries, that the fact that Eris is an Aries, just kind of how fast are we to fight? Are we fighting for the right things? Are we fighting the right battles? And as a protector of, people who are, or, the champion for people who are left out, but where do we feel left out? Whereas probably that will come. I think everyone who, whatever side, because everything's very polarized now. It's as if we're on two sides. If you talk to people on one side or the other, everyone feels that they're just protecting what's right and themselves, and they're, and how can we actually, maybe these squares will force us to see that we're actually fighting for the same ideal, even if we're coming at it from totally different sides, and I'm curious to see how that will pan out,
Completely. Meanwhile, it's my laugh because you're like, okay, let's just synthesize to a few things.
Oh yeah, okay, well,
That's like a big thing because there's so much to say about this too.
Sagittarius sun. One more thing.
Me too. I'm like, keep it rising, but wait, and then there's more.
Bullet pointing out, forget it. I love it, so it's so true.
So, I think that's, and to your point too, like, those, who has been marginalized, right? And how can we, and what parts of ourselves have been marginalized,
right?
But again, maybe we own again that shadow or that projection about what we're doing out in the world because of what we do for ourselves, right? So you start at home.
Yep.
You start at home, and then you bring that out into the world, which
Start
again feels very
That's
important
great.
when then Jupiter and Saturn come with Aquarius, right? Then we can come together.
And that's going to be on the winter solstice of
Unbelievable.
2020. On top of it all, right? One last thing, because there's always one more thing. But many of you have read Stephanie on our website, AstroStyle. She's our wellness astrologer. So you have a great practice using flower essences. And I'd asked Stephanie to come up with one or two flower essences that we can use to balance ourselves. Can you say a little bit about how to work with flower essences? And I know you've chosen a couple, so
yeah. So flower essences, and most people might be familiar with flower essences when they think about the complex remedy called Rescue Remedy, which is 5 flower essences that is used for like acute shock or stress. Flower essences are vibrational elixirs that help you to balance unbalances in sort of emotional and energetic ways. Like we all have different levels of stress. What's causing your stress? What's causing my stress? And these flower essences address them, each of them. So I was thinking about, there's a multitude of different ones. It obviously depends upon yourself, but just sort of from a collective perspective, I can see the 2 that I would choose would be rock rose. Rock rose feels very intensely Jupiter and Pluto because rock rose is for when you might find yourself, experiencing perceived like catastrophe, right? Whether it be like a personal catastrophe or sort of connecting into like the sort of sense of collective, like the structures, Capricorn, are crumbling, right? So rock rose is really good in terms of like allowing you to stay grounded and feel protected while it feels like Rome might be burning, right? And it's,
or the sky is falling.
Or the sky is falling and you're facing that sense of personal adversity, so you get that sense of grounding and faith and connection. So that, rock rose, in all my studies, when I would think about rock rose, I was like, this is a really extreme flower essences. But for people who might feel like sort of, imbalanced like that, that would be great.
I feel like a rock rose mocktail has to be on the New Year's Eve menu. Like, let us all forget the champagne. First, let's do, because you can mix it up right. And,
Yeah, and that's, okay, yes, to that
How
point.
does rock rose pair with champagne? Does it work? I don't know.
Right, with little like rose, yeah, it's perfect. So, and actually, to your point too, like the way that you can actually use flower essences is you can actually put them in water or your mocktail or your cocktail. Okay. You can take them by mouth. One of the ways that I love to use them is take like a glass bottle, put filtered water, put about 6 drops of your flower essence, and you can use multiple ones, and then maybe put your favorite essential oil, ylang ylang, lavender, rosemary, whatever you like. Shake it up, and then just spray yourself. Spray yourself, spray your environment. So that's a way to use the flower essences. And then I would say too, there's so many different ones. There's aspen, there's mimulus, but I'd say if there was just another one, you were only going to get one flower essence. Rescue Remedy actually has rock rose in it.
Oh, does it?
It also has impatience and clematis and Star of Bethlehem and I think cherry plum. So if you just want something like tucked away in your pocket for those times when you might feel like there's a bit of stress that I'm moving through and I need some support, Rescue Remedy, or it's also called 5-flower formula.
It's great stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it works for pets too.
It works for pets.
They have a pet blend, I know.
Yeah.
Yes,
so I would recommend, either sort of that really acute or just sort of using that formula that will cover you.
That's amazing. Okay, rock rose. I'm already. I think the rose petal. Now, can you sip it with champagne? Just curious.
I think you can.
Okay. Minds are turning, wheels are turning. Well, thank you so much for you already know that I am starstruck by you, but I think it's because you're just so brilliant at blending. The emotional, the psychological, the transformational, and the celestial in a way that you are able to provide real world solutions to. And you're so wise and but always uplifting. And I really thank you for sharing that with everyone here, because this is now I feel much more prepared, for 2020, knowing that, okay, there's going to, be some tough stuff to look at, but okay, that's all right. Accept it, embrace it, make room for it. And I know also that you're coming out with a book on dreams in September. Any other things, to look forward to, or, the book's going to be, talk to us a little bit about your book.
So the book is tentatively called The Complete Book of Dreams. And
Beautiful.
It covers a whole host of different topics related to that are both informational, inspirational, and practical.
Great.
How to work with your dreams and really looking at dreams from a healing perspective. So it does tie in, there's astrology in it, and tarot, and also, from a psychological perspective, there's lots and lots of different things in the book. And it's been, no pun intended, a dream come true. And I will be doing much more work when I finish my book, which is actually 2 days after the Saturn Pluto conjunction.
Oh my God.
I will be doing much more work with dreams in this coming year. Doing dream groups, doing classes on dreams, hoping to do programs as well with organizations, institutions, hotels, what have you, with sleep and dreams.
Oh, perfect.
The other thing that I'm really looking forward to blending is my passion about the environment and environmental awareness with astrology. So I'm working with Astrology University, part of their Eco Summit, and I'm going to work with more clients from that perspective, because astrology can really hold a key, I think, again, this Jupiter-Pluto time, that can help us to orient to these larger issues that face us all.
Yeah, I love that you're working with the earth, and that's your magic, too. You're here on this plane, and you're up here too, and you know how to move back and forth really fluidly. So
Pisces, Sun, Taurus, Moon.
Oh, exactly, right? Of course, So I am excited to see what emerges, and that dream book is a long time coming. We have needed that, haven't we? So, and you can find her at stephaniegailing.com. And thank you so much. Happy 2020, everyone.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing for all of us. With the summit and with everything else that you and Ophi do.
It's great. I mean, how can we not? It's only a chance to hang out with our favorite people. 11th house sun. What else are we gonna do? So, all right. Well, bye everyone, and have a great 2020.
Have a great 2020.
Or look at your shit. Whatever. And have a great time doing it,
Your rock rose mocktail.
Exactly. Cheers. I'll drink to that.